Let's go to the phone right now and bring in Jason Jones. He's an NBA beat writer for the Sacramento Bee. He covered the Kings when Mike Malone was the coach there for a very short period of time. Jason, thanks for joining the show.
Oh, no problem.
Jason, you threw out a tweet this morning, just a little while ago, that said, well, I guess we know who is not making the decisions for the Denver Nuggets, and my guess is you were referring to Pete DAllesandro. Tell me why the Kings and DAllesandro and the owner fired Mike Malone at the beginning of the year.
Well, this was a thing with them that was brewing since Mike's first season in Sacramento. What Pete's vision for the Kings was and what Malone saw he had as a roster just never matched. Pete really wanted this fast-paced offense, and what Mike said was, I have a 280-pound center, and my small forward in Rudy Gay isn't exactly,
Fleet of
Kevin
foot.
Durant when it comes to running. So why would I want to, constantly push them like that? But what Malone's theory was that he wanted to defend and then use defense to get as many transition buckets as possible. I think early in the year when they beat Denver, they scored, I think, 131. So he wasn't adverse at all to playing faster. He just didn't want to play the way Pete wanted them to play. So Pete, and along with Chris Mullin, who was an advisor then, kind of just stayed in the owner's ear about we got to make a change until they finally made a change once DeMarcus Cousins got sick.
Jason, this Woody. I'm going to take you back way before you were born and everybody else here, but the Boston Celtics ran the basketball with a center who never ran. That was Bill Russell. They won a lot of titles, I think 10 or 11. Wesley Unseld was the biggest center I've ever seen for a lot of years until Kendrick Perkins came along. And the old Baltimore Bullets won a championship with Wes Unseld just featuring the outlet pass. I don't get that if you are interested in setting a quick pace that you want to use as an excuse. I got a center that can't run. I mean, most teams that do run don't have a great running center. How'd that work out with JaVale McGee here? He was a running center. He was also a center that spent most of his time on his butt. So anyway, Jason, I don't know whether there was a question in there, but do you like this hire for the Nuggets? Do you think it's a good hire for the Nuggets?
I don't. I think Malone's a good coach. I don't know the Nuggets roster well enough to know exactly how they'll fit with him. But I know everywhere Malone's been, he's always been able to connect with his best players. When he was in Golden State, Steph Curry still swears by him. LeBron loves him. DeMarcus Cousins loves him. Chris Paul loved him in New Orleans. So I don't worry about that part. I think, if there's any issues between coach-player relations, I think he'll be able to smooth those out right away. I'm just not, he doesn't have Chris Paul, he doesn't have Steph Curry, but he does have a better point guard probably than he had in Sacramento.
Oh, so that's not going to happen, though. When you say you don't know the roster, guess what? He doesn't know the roster. We don't know the roster because they're going to get rid of everybody that's on this roster. And
including Ty Lawson in all probability.
The point guard you're talking about is not going to be here because they're going to get rid of him by draft day. Kenneth Faried probably won't be here. I mean, this is a transition team here, almost a bus stop team, what I call it. You can go over to the Trailways bus station, and whoever gets off, that's going to be the next part of the Nuggets. We just think you mentioned Melvin Hunt. Melvin Hunt's a better choice. He actually brought those players together at the end of last year. Mike D'Antoni you're covering the series, I would imagine. Mike D'Antoni's name is being mentioned more than any of the other the two coaches in the series, that this is a Mike D'Antoni series. Would you agree with that?
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. Definitely you look at the way that, the way that the finals is going, I think Mike's probably sitting around going, see everybody, I told you. But me knowing Mike, I know Mike would also would say that he was there with the Warriors when they started this. So just knowing him, he would say, he's not opposed to what the Warriors are doing at all. In part because the Warriors were probably the most defensively the best defensive team in the league this past season. So, but like I said, you also have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, a lot of good players. I don't know what he's going to end up having in Denver.
Jason, we just went through a situation here with Brian Shaw where Brian tended to throw his players under the bus. Brian had trouble figuring out exactly how to play here. It was very, very ugly, and it got ugly very quickly. Mike Malone and his relationship with his players? What was that like in Sacramento? Did they like playing for him? And do you expect any of that type of stuff to go on here, or is Mike Malone a different cat?
I don't expect any of that. I mean, the players in Sacramento loved him. Part of the reason why that season went down the toilet so quickly after they fired him was because every man in that locker room was heated with Pete and the front office. That was the worst thing they could have done to that locker room was fire Malone. That was the one guy who would finally actually reach DeMarcus and got DeMarcus playing at the level that most people thought he could. So when that happened, DeMarcus went into a funk, Rudy Gay went into they all kind of pretty much took 2 months off. So, and then you talk to LeBron James, you talk to Stephen Curry, all those guys love Malone. So I don't think that'll be an issue. But one of his strengths as a coach is that he does know how to reach his players, and he seems to have a way to connecting with all of them. So I don't think that'll be an issue at all.
Jason, we figured as soon as Pete DAllesandro was named a vice president here on the basketball side that there was no way Mike Malone was going to get this job. I've read stuff that says if those two guys ran across each other in a hallway, fisticuffs might break out. So this is terribly surprising. Was DAllesandro the guy who actually fired Mike Malone? Was it his decision, or did it come from the owner?
It was Pete. I mean, it was funny how the day it happened, Pete declared, "I'm the general manager. This is my call. I want to do this." And then if things went bad, everyone took turns blaming everyone else for what had happened. It was like then it became, well, the owner made me do it, or I didn't really want to do it. But everyone who was around there, that was Pete's call because it was brewing for months. Whether it be when they were trying to hire assistant coaches and. I got this from numerous people. Pete telling Alvin Gentry, "Don't worry about being the associate head coach because you'll be head coach midway through the season." I mean, obviously Alvin took a better job by going to the Warriors, but I mean, those two were never going to see eye to eye. I mean, the communication between them was minimal at best, and there was the fact that Malone got that job tells me Pete is definitely not making the call because if it was Pete making the call. There's no way I see Malone ending up there.
Yeah. Well, it's been said here, Jason, he's the vice president of business operations or something. Maybe he'll spend all of his time with the Colorado Avalanche and not go down a hall to the Denver Nuggets.
That would be a good idea because trust me, Malone. If he had a camp, Malone camp is not like Pete at all. So yeah, that would be a good idea.
Wow,
that's going to be a strange pairing.
Yeah.
You mentioned you sort of in passing. We brought up the name Ty Lawson. I want to shift it a little bit. That George Karl really liked Ty Lawson. The Nuggets really want to get rid of Ty Lawson. Les, my partner here, has talked about the possibility of the Nuggets getting another first-round draft pick and moving Ty Lawson on draft day. Do you think a Ty Lawson, you've seen him play, a Ty Lawson would fit in with what George Karl is trying to do there? And do you think Sacramento would be willing to give up at least some kind of draft pick or player?
Yeah, we'll take DeMarcus Cousins, Jason, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I think they definitely would because if you look at when Darren Collison was injured last season, they traded for Andre Miller, and you had to play Andre Miller 25, 30 minutes. And I mean, as good as Andre was for them, there's no way you should be playing Andre Miller at this stage of his career 30 minutes. So they really feel like they have a void at point guard even when Darren is healthy. And I think at the last draft workout, George said they have an opening at backup point guard, but he wants to play with 2 point guards. So if he can have the second point guard, I know he probably would love to have Ty out there. And right now, there's so much. The team has been so bad for so long now in Sacramento. They really, if they had their choice, would not want to bring another 19-year-old kid to add to the mix and wait for him to develop. They want to get better faster. So if they can somehow get Ty without giving up DeMarcus, I think they would do that. I think the only 2 guys on that team they wouldn't part with are probably DeMarcus and Rudy Gay.
Well, let's just make the deal here, Jason. Let's just you and I make the deal. We'll give you Ty Lawson. You give us your first-round draft pick, and we call it a day. We move on.
Yeah.
Jason, appreciate your time. Where can people find you on Twitter?
I'm at Mr._Jason Jones.
Mr. Jason Jones. Jason, really appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
No problem. Thanks anytime, guys.
Jason Jones, he's the NBA beat writer for the Sacramento Bee, and that Segment brought to you by the Harmony Foundation, Colorado's premier treatment program for drug and alcohol addiction. It's located just outside of Estes Park. They've got a very nice, very private 45-acre mountain campus. They are insurance friendly. So visit harmonyfoundationinc.com.